Most PDFs fail accessibility before they are even created. The real battle is here in Word. Today, I will show you exactly how every choice you make in Word document decides whether PDF becomes accessible or a lawsuit risk. Everyone thinks making an accessible PDF starts in Acrobat, but 80% of PDF accessibility is decided right here in Word. So open your Word, follow me step by step. Pause this video whenever you need, and by the time you hit replay, you won't just know accessibility, you have built it. And if you are ready to stop shipping inaccessible documents, like, comment, and share this with a teammate who needs to fix their Word files. Let's build this document together. Nothing is more frustrating for an assistive technology user than hearing the wrong language. So before we even type a single word, we fix the thing everyone always skips, the document language. Because accessibility doesn't start at step 10, it starts at step 0. When you have set the right language in Word, it transfers straight into the PDF. That's one major accessibility step already done before you even export your file. Okay, so before even writing a single letter, let's go to this Word document. Under Files, go to Options, and under Language, you can make a selection for English as the set or the default language of this document. In case you have been working in different languages, maybe German, Italian, if you want to create a document in English, this is where you have to come and set the language. And then simply click on OK to set that as the primary language of this document. Now, if I have something in other language apart from English, let's say Spanish, I'll make this selection under Review tab, and then we have Language, expand this, then set Proofing Language. The moment you select it, it will give you a list of all the languages that are supported, and then choose the right language. So let's find for Spanish. And within Spanish, you will find a lot of dialects. Let's select Spanish for Mexico and then say OK. Now this is how we set language of parts within a Word document. Now Word does have automatic language detection, but don't rely on it blindly. Even when it is turned on, we have seen it miss the mark or fail to detect the language correctly. As I always say, trust but verify. Here's the number one structural mistake people make: faking headings, using big bold styles to make a text look like a heading. It's great for visual users, but 100% useless for screen reader users, because assistive technologies depends on the actual semantics and not visual styling. Let's give this document a skeleton and create our first heading. So we'll say Web Accessible Document. And to make this as a heading, I'm going to select the entire text, go to your home, and here you will see the style tags. This is my H1. And the moment I select it, let's fix the spelling errors. Oh, you see, because that text was actually marked as Spanish, it's giving me spelling errors. So let's delete the entire content here and then try to write Web Accessible Word Document. It's still throwing us the error, so let's go ahead and go to the review under Language, set Proofing Language, select English, and then that error should go away. Now we have a spelling mistake for accessible. Now to make this as a heading, select the entire word, go to Home, and then select the heading tag. With this, under Navigation, if you do not see this navigation, the simple steps are go to View and then select the navigation pane. The moment you do that, it will start displaying the navigation on the left side. So this is our heading 1. The other way to do is, before even writing, go to your home tag, select the heading that you want to add, and then start typing. So we will say headings. Now, as you can see under the navigation, Web Accessible Word Document is the main heading. And within that heading, you have another heading level H2. Similarly, if you want to add a third level, which is H3, simply either write the text, we will say using style tags, make this as a selection, and select H3. Let's add one more style just to show you how you can modify the look and feel of it. So what I've done is I have simply copy pasted using style tags, and this is our H3. I want to modify the look and feel of this. So if I simply go to heading 3, select modify, and this window, I change the color. Let's change the font size from 14 to 12 just for the demo purposes. I simply select OK. The moment I should click OK, it should modify the styling for both heading level 3s. Let's have a look. See, I applied style to heading level 3, and any tag which was at H3 got the same styling. So this is how you can modify the look and feel of your headings by simply modifying different style tags. Let's go ahead and revert our changes because this is the style that I want to keep this document. Screen reader users can now scan the entire document by reading headings only, which builds a mental map of the content. Thumb rules for headings are: do not fake headings, use real heading tags. Headings must be accurate and descriptive. Do not skip heading levels. These little steps convert your heading tags in Word into navigational tags in a PDF, giving screen reader users the same quick jump to section experience as that of sighted users. Next, let's talk table of contents. Most people think a table of content is decorative, optional, or nice to have. But for screen reader users, a table of content acts as a bypassing blocks of content. It's how they jump instantly to any section without listening to 20 pages line by line. Now, table of content is dependent on your heading. If you have created headings using actual heading tags, only then it will create accessible table of content. Let's go ahead and add few more headings so that will be helpful for us when we are creating the table of content. So let me quickly add that. So let's simply go under Web Accessible Word Document, then go to References and click on Table of Content. Within this, you have multiple options to choose from. Let's select the first option, which is Automatic Table 1. Now, as I said earlier, your table of content is dependent upon the right headings that you have in your Word document. With the right use of headings, it's able to identify on which page that individual heading is present. Now, it also provides a mechanism for you to go directly to that page. It says Control-click to follow the link. So your heading tags are actually getting converted into links for screen reader users to access and jump directly to the page that they want to. Now, this table of content becomes clickable, tagged bookmark in your exported PDF, giving blind and low vision users instant jump navigation across sections, just like sighted users scanning a page. With this, your document now has a real backbone, heading structure, and table of content, giving freedom for screen reader users. Let's continue building. Next, let's fix the sneakiest place accessibility breaks: headers, footers, footnotes. Most people never think about them until users can't find the most important information. Now, the challenge with the headers and footers is that they are not announced by default by a screen reader. A user has to explicitly go looking for them. What I meant is, if we are using up or down arrow keys, headers and footers will not be in the reading order. You have to enter headers and footer region by going into the edit mode. Now, the rationale behind this is that assistive technologies treat header and footer as a repeated block of content, and it hides it from assistive technology. I will show you how a screen reader can access header and footer in our next video. Now it's time to add headers and footers. So simply go to Insert tab, and then under Headers and Footers section, click on Header. You can choose any of the built-in headers, or you can create one for yourself. So let's go ahead with the built-in. Let's go with one column and Start typing header. Or let's make it more meaningful. Practical guide to create web accessible documents. And similarly, if I want to insert a footer, I'll go to the footer section, select this, and then here if I double click, I can say confidential and simply click out or click on close header and footer. Now, as you can see, the color contrast for header and footer is also less than what we expect. It is the other challenge with this is it's not announced automatically when a screen reader is turned on, which means using up or down, they are not in the accessible order. And in case you are saying this is confidential, this information might get skipped. So it is always critical to ensure that you provide such information in the main document. So how we can do is create a text, write it as confidential, select this, highlight it a little bit more, let's give 14 pixels, highlight it in red, make it bold as well. Now because this content is part of the main Word document, it is accessible in the right order. So your most critical information must not be part of your header and footer. To make it fully inclusive, make it part of the Word itself. Similar to Word document, header and footer are not announced automatically in PDFs for the same reasons, but they still provide a vital information such as correct structure in the PDF tag tree. We will also cover tag tree in our upcoming videos. Best practice is if your header or footer contains critical information, repeat it in the document body. Now for the footnotes or endnotes, screen reader automatically announces its presence but does not read the actual footnote. A user needs to explicitly go there to read, which also we will cover in our next video. So do subscribe to not miss that video. Let's add few footnotes in the accessible way. Let's simply go to our headers, footer, and footnotes heading. Within this, let's add a paragraph. Let's add footnotes to this footnotes word. Simply go to references, then click on insert footnotes. The moment I did that, you observe there is a tiny number, which is number 1. And then my focus is directly on the actual footnote that we want to add. So let's say example of a footnote. Similarly, if I have to select screen readers, I'll select this entire word and then click on insert footnote. Now observe there is a number 2 besides screen readers, and then there is an example. So screen readers example. So this is how I will create an accessible footnote in the Word document. Similarly, as you just saw, there is an option to insert an endnote. This is where I want you to create an endnote in your Word document and let me know what challenges did you face. Footnote markers become links. Actual notes themselves becomes link destinations. Screen reader user can jump to and back from the note. This is critical because without tags, a footnote becomes plain text in the wrong reading order and completely disconnected. Comment if you know the difference between an endnote and a footnote. Now comes something tiny, but it changes everything. Acronyms. Think about it. If I asked you to comment the full form of CDC, ODI, or VPAC, you might pause, guess, or get it wrong. Because unless you live in that industry, those letters mean nothing. And that's exactly how it feels for screen reader users. They don't magically know your industry shortcuts. They hear those letters one by one with zero context, and suddenly a simple paragraph becomes a puzzle. So spell out your abbreviations at least once. Give people clarity that they deserve right from the start. Now for abbreviations and acronyms, let's simply go here, and if I add GAD, it doesn't make sense. So the best option is to explain it, say Global Accessibility Awareness Day. Do it at least once in your Word document and usually at the beginning of the document. so that user has a good context in mind when reading your word. Such a small step, but it turns confusion into confidence. Let's talk about layouts. Columns look beautiful, but fake columns, they are an accessibility nightmare. Because here's the truth. A screen reader does not see your neat side-by-side design. It doesn't see balance, alignment, or spacing. It only sees one thing: linear story, read from top to bottom, left to right, even if we visually try to split it into two columns. So when we create columns using spaces or tabs, we are not designing, we are breaking the reading experience. Imagine trying to read two newspapers woven into one single stream. That's what fake columns feel like. But when you use Word's built-in columns tool, you're not just arranging content, you're giving screen readers a clear path, a predictable flow, a story that they can follow without confusion. And that clarity carries forward because real columns turn into a perfectly ordered, fully accessible tagged PDF. For columns, let's create accessible columns using the columns tool. So what I will do is I'll paste a text that I have copied and I will select this section under layouts, go to columns and select 1, 2 or 3. For this example, let's go with only 2. Now if I press Ctrl V again, it will copy it in the next column. Now if I continue pasting it, it will do in the column manner. Now I have given some numbering, so it will read accessible column created using number 1, then number 2, then number 3 on the right side, followed by number 4. So this is how a screen reader will ensure that the readability of your content remains intact. And it's not only visual, it's how it is read in the linear manner. You are not just creating layout, you're creating access. A quick warning, superscripts and subscripts might look right, but screen readers usually flatten them into plain text. So your E equals MC square is read as E equals MC2. They generally ignore formatting. The issue is there for HTML and PDF too. The right way of writing superscripts and subscripts is using MathML. Because I don't have access to that MathML plugin in this Word document, the thing that we can demo is if I write FST, this is actually getting announced perfectly fine by a screen reader. Similarly, we have 2ND or second, 3RD, because these are very commonly known equations. These are getting announced correctly. But for right equations such as E equals to MC square, always use MathML. Use them wisely or skip them entirely. Your users will thank you. Page numbers help sighted people, but screen readers barely notice them because page numbers are usually present within the footer. And footer, as we just discussed, are not read automatically by screen readers. You should continue to use them, but not depend only on them for page navigation. Next, let's go ahead and talk about page numbers. So for page numbers, simply go to Insert. Then under Header and Footer, you have an option for page numbers. Usually, you will find page numbers at the bottom of the page on the right side. So let's select that as an option. And again, page numbers are since part of the footer, they are not automatically accessible by a screen reader user. They have to enter the edit mode to understand the page number. This is where it is critical not to depend only on page numbers for navigation. Page numbers are great when you print a document, so always keep them in your document. In a tagged PDF, page numbers become properly tagged artifacts, meaning assistive technology knows they are there but can safely skip them so they don't interrupt the reading flow. Before we move on, it's time to call out one of the biggest silent accessibility failures in Word: links. They are misused, ignored, and misunderstood, and they break user experience more than anything else. Let's fix them the right way. Links are clickable elements that let user jumps to another place, a web page, or an email address, another file, or even a specific section inside the same document. The first link that we can have is opening up an external web page. So let's say open a web page. Now, to insert a link, select this text, right click, and then simply go to the link tab. Click on it, it will open up a window. And this is where you have 4 different options. So the one that we are working right now is existing file or a web page. So this is where you have to provide the actual URL or the web address. So let's do XYZ for the time being. And the moment I do that, it converts the look and feel of this text to make it more visually appealing as a link. Now, link text should be self-explanatory. So rather than saying open a web page, let's say watch more accessibility videos on skills Sing channel, and then make this as a link. The second most commonly used link is opening up a mail. So you might see a link which says send an email. So let's make that send an email to Singh Egypt. This thing. Again, select the entire string, right click on it, go to links, then select email address. Then you can simply say yours skills sing@gmail.com. And you have the option to provide subject. So let's say checking for one-on-one sessions. And then you can provide any recently email that you have used while sending emails and simply say OK. Again, the moment you do that, it will convert that regular text into a link text. Similarly, try out the other 2 options of creating links and let me know in the comments if you faced any challenges with that. Every correctly added link tells a story and becomes a properly tagged hyperlink in a PDF, improving overall PDF accessibility. Now we enter the part everyone loves, making your document look good. But here's the truth. Appearance means nothing without intention. Okay, let's go to styles and appearances. And I have suggested earlier, always use the styles provided for the heading tags. Our goal is to provide clarity and inclusive experience to our screen reader users. Do not use styles and appearance only for decorative purposes. The common mistake that you might have seen people using is using different styling like bold to differentiate between sold out and in-store products. For example, they have a list which says iPhone 17 Pro Max, and we'll say iPhone 17 Pro, iPhone 16. Okay, say Pro Max. And to signify this, that these 2 are sold out, they will mark it as bold. Now that's the challenge because you're dependent only on color. A better approach would be to mark this and say sold out and do the same. Or if you want to be more dramatic, use this, making it more visually appealing. But for a screen reader user, you still have text which says sold out. And you're not only dependent on color or styling. So I'll say in stock. So this is one example wherein you are not dependent on color alone. Also, your color contrast should be minimum at 4.5:1, same as that of our web applications for text. And if you're having a visual element such as an icon, that should be at 3:1. Similarly, you might have seen examples where sold out products are part of the one box and then in stock are marked in another box. Let's see that with an example. So I'll say inventory details below, and I'll do insert a table with 1, and in this I will list out. Let's copy this. I'm gonna remove this just to give you a bad example and make this heading more clear. I'll say sold out in box 1, in stock items in box 2. Now let's reduce the length of this, keep it till this point. I'll copy this box and then create another one here. And here I will simply say iPhone 16 Pro Max. This is also a wrong approach because we are dependent only on this text for a user to understand like what is in stock versus sold out. A better approach would be to provide each box an individual heading. So I'll say sold out items and then mark this as an H3. And then for this one, I'll say in stock items. Select it, mark it as H3. Now this is explicit that which element or which item is part of which section. So we are not dependent on borders or boxes to define meaning for those content. Another common mistake that we usually see that your elements are not left aligned. So let me copy this. Did here create a big paragraph out of this. So let me copy this again. Now, what you might have seen, people selecting it and changing it to justified. With this, there is a high possibility of creating a sea of white space. You will see a lot of spacing in between words on certain occasions. This hampers the readability of your content. It is always recommended to keep the alignment left aligned. It helps with easier readability. Our goal isn't decoration, it's clarity, readability, and predictability. Every style choice you make in Word becomes structural meaning in your tagged PDF. So design clean, and your PDF becomes accessible by default. Fonts matter more than people realize. When we choose fonts in an accessible document, we are not choosing vibes. We are choosing again readability, clarity, and user comfort. So let's start clean. Let's copy this one more time for our fonts and styles examples. Let's go to text and fonts. I'm going to copy paste it. The first issue that we are going to talk about is the font family. Right now, I have selected Aptos, which is the default option provided by Word. You might see or you might be tempted to use a different kind of font family that looks visually appealing. However, that hampers the readability, especially for people with dyslexia. So always ensure that the font that you are using is fully readable. To be on the safer side, usually go with sans or sans serif because they have been tested for usability and they have outperformed other font families. So let's keep it this way. Next, I would set the font size to at least 10 points. I will never go below 10 points. Not 10 points because you might have footnotes. So if we go back to our footnote examples, I'm going to use our left navigation for it. Headers, footnotes. See, this footnote is at 10 points. And if we are working on a document, ensure that your font is at least at 10, not below 10. Anything below 10 is causing issues for readability. Even a person with a perfect vision will have challenges reading that content. Let's roll it back to 12. Me personally, I never go below 11. Also, you might have seen content written in all caps. So for example, let me turn on subscribe. Have you responded to my email? This content is not only aggressive, it slows down the reading pace. So avoid using caps within your Word document. Put it in the comments if you're aware if a screen reader will read it as a word at a time or one letter at a time. You might have also seen content written in italics. So let's take an example. Yes, I did respond to your email. Now, if I use this Control I, it converts my content into italic style. Now, screen reader will only read it as yes, I did respond to your email. It will not emphasize or call out whether the content was written using italic style or not. So use it sparingly and never use them to convey a meaning. If it is providing meaningful, it should also be conveyed to a screen reader user with additional text. Another common example would be, you might have seen, let's redo this. Yes, I have responded to your email. You might have seen people highlighting this. So if I do this and say green, Control B to make it more inclusive for a visual person. Now, even the highlighted content is never read out by a screen reader. So to ensure that a screen reader also listens to this message, which is highlighted, at the beginning of the content, say, add a keyword which says important. Now a screen reader will hear important. Yes, I have responded to your email. This is a workaround. So always avoid highlighting content. Everything we styled here translates directly into your accessible PDF. Accessible font choices along with predictable styling in Word gives you clean, readable tagged text in your exported PDF. If you get typography wrong in Word, your PDF is broken before it even exists. Alright, images. Another big reason documents fail accessibility. Let's give every image a real purpose. Our next segment talks about images and shapes. So let's go to Insert, select a picture. I'm gonna select an image from this device. I will make sure of a couple of things. One, that this image is in line with the text. If it is not in line with text, it will be very challenging for a screen reader to read the alt text. Secondly, to provide an alt text, simply right click and then go to View Alt Text. Now, if your image is meaningful and conveying meaning, you must provide an accessible name. This is the auto-generated alt text via AI. So I'm going to remove this. I'll say NVDA screen reader demo. And if this image was for decorative purposes only, I will use mark as decorative to mark this image as decorative. Let's keep this as a meaningful image and say NVDA screen reader demo as an alternate text for this image. Now, if you want to understand what are the 5 golden rules to writing alternate text to images, watch this video to explore the 5 golden rules to writing alternate text. Comment which one is your favorite. The other example that we can take is often complex image. Let's insert, go to pictures, go to stock images. Now assume that this image reflects how many views you got last month. In your alt text, it is going to be very challenging to convey which segment represents what information. So in that case, your alternate text should be brief about this image. Say total visits last month. And then you can say more details below this image. Now, there are a couple of options. Either you can have a link which says details about last month visits. Convert this into a link. Either it could be an external link that takes user to a text-based information, or it could be a segment at the bottom of the Word document with a text information. That's one option. Secondly, you can create a table, and that's where we are heading next. When you add proper alt text in Word, you're not just helping screen reader in Word. You're actually embedding the description directly into PDF tags. So when this becomes a PDF, assistive technology instantly knows what every image means. Now it's time to build tables with care. Sighted users see layout. Screen reader users hear relationships. And if we don't define those clearly, the whole table falls apart for them. Now, there are 2 types of tables, data tables and layout tables. Let's begin with data tables. So under tables, go to insert and then select the insert table option. Never select draw table because drawing a table is not accessible. So in this case, let's go with 3 columns and 2 rows. It would be my serial number, month, visits. Now to make it fully inclusive, you need to ensure that this row, after you go to table design, your header row is selected and your first column is selected. This is how when you are navigating from one column cell to another, it will be announced to a screen reader. So let's say month is December, November, pardon my spellings today, I'll say 5K, 4.5K. Okay, so this is how you will ensure that the complex image that you have used is properly explained using the information provided either using a link or a table beneath that image. And because we have to cover tables anyways, this is how you create an accessible table, a data table. I will also walk you through how to create a layout table. But let's talk a little bit more about data tables. Now to call this data table fully inclusive, we have to tweak a little bit. One, I have to select and go to the properties of this table. Go to table properties, then go to alt text and then give captions for this table. So let's say detailed info, or let's say monthly visits for XYZ website. Simply click OK. Now technically you have provided a caption for this table. To make it more visually appealing, what you can do is add another heading. So let's go with H3. Just to follow the structure of this document, I'll say monthly visits z.com. Again, pardon my spellings. And to make it more visually appealing, I'll select the first row, give it a different treatment. I'll say purple, change it to white. Now this is only for visual users. It's not going to make any difference to a screen reader who cannot visually see the visual aspects. Now, what happens if this table goes beyond this page? So let me create more rows for this so that it is spanning to 2 different pages. Now, in this case, on second page, you might not see the table headers. And this is where we have to make a little tweak. Simply select this table, go to table layout, and then select repeat header rows. The moment you do this, you will see, oh, in our case, it's moving to the different screen. Let me reduce size of this image. Let's add, oh, I just want to move it to this section. Let's reduce size of this image. To give you an example of tables spanning 2 different pages. For some reason, in my case, my table is moving directly into the next page, but in your case, it might be different. So if your table is spanning 2 different pages, ensure under your table layout, repeat header rows has been turned on. Avoid using complex tables. Complex tables are very challenging to tackle from the accessibility standpoint, especially in Word, because there is no way that you can define a relationship between a complex header with the cell value. So avoid using complex tables. Now let's talk about the layout tables. There might be occasions where you want to align objects in your Word document in a perfect pattern or visually appealing. In those cases, we use layout tables. The steps are exactly the same. Go to insert table, make a selection. The only difference would be under your table design, you have to get rid of header rows and first column so that it is not technically a data table. Also, you can get rid of the borders that you see, and that's again under table design, say no border. And then before you even do that, now you can add your elements here, right? It could be an image that you want to insert in the third column. Once you're done, you make a selection, go to borders and say no borders. Now it's a visual table rather than a data table. Every rule you follow here, proper headers, clean structure, no merged cells, they turn your table into a true data table in the tagged PDF. One that screen readers can navigate accurately and not guess at all. Tables are facts. Charts are your stories. Let's make sure your story isn't lost. Mostly, charts and graphics are not accessible for screen readers. You must provide a good alternate text along with an explanation in a text format. Let's see how we can do it. Next, it's time to talk about charts and graphics. Let's simply go to Insert, go to Chart. Let's take this as an example. Now, to ensure that this inserted chart is fully inclusive, ensure that your chart is in line with the text. Similar to the images, if it is not in line with text, it will not be read out. Secondly, ensure that you're providing a brief alternate text. Company sales last quarter. More details under the chart. And below the chart, you have to insert either a link that takes to the text format explaining this complete chart or display a data table. So again, go to Insert, go to Tables and explain everything in this table format. Also, there is an option to embed objects. In that case, simply go to Insert, select Object. You can choose from these options, like is it a PDF file, a Microsoft Excel, anything that you want to embed. I'll say create from file. I'll browse for my file. Let's say I'm going to add this helper.txt file. I'll say insert. I'll say link to file, display as icon. I'll say OK. And to this, to make it inclusive, I will right click, go to insert caption. And this is where I will say what this file is for, helper.txt file. Now to add alternate text, simply right click on it, go to picture, go to alt, and this is where you can define what this image is all about. You'll say helper text file added. Simply say OK. And this is the alternate text that will be translated into your tagged PDF. When you build accessible charts, graphs, and embedded objects in Word, you're not just making Word accessible, you are preloading accessibility metadata that gets carried directly into tagged PDF. Here's what actually happens. Inline positioning ensures the PDF export preserves the correct reading order and no floating objects jumping around. All text and long descriptions becomes alternate or actual text entries inside the PDF tag. Chart titles, legends, and data labels are converted into proper PDF structure tags, giving non-visual users context instead of graphic or blank announcements. Embedded files with alternate text appear in the PDF structure tree with meaningful description so users know what the object contains. Forms, this is the trap. Word looks like it supports accessible forms, but it does not. When you add text boxes, drop-downs, or checkboxes, screen readers often announce them as edit blank. No label, no purpose, or no context. Many controls aren't identified correctly at all. Users can't tell what the field is, what to enter, or why it exists. Word cannot bind labels to form fields unlike HTML or properly tagged PDFs. Word has no semantic structure that associates a label with the form field announcements. So even if the form looks perfect visually, assistive technology sees chaos. And the result? Your nice looking form becomes unusable for blind and screen reader users. Keyboard only navigation often breaks. Form data becomes inaccessible or misleading. If your form collects real information, it must not live in Word, but rather built either in HTML a preferred way or in a tagged PDF. Let's talk about forms. So I have a label which says first name. Okay, let me move this to the next page. I have first name. Let's make it visually a form label. And then I will say insert text box. I'll say simple text box. I will drag it here. See, it's already causing issues while I'm trying to drag and put it here. Let's add a placeholder. Enter your first name. Enter your first name. Now, as you just saw, there are a lot of challenges in terms of alignment, and these elements, when converted to PDF, they don't retain the relationship between the text. Now I selected inline with text. It is changing or disturbing the aesthetics of this Word document. That's the reason it's always recommended to create forms either in the HTML document or in the tagged PDF. Now, if you're simply working on PDFs for forms, that is the best place to create a form. My honest opinion would be to use PDF to build forms or PDF document. Math looks beautiful visually, but most screen readers cannot interpret equations created in Word unless they're authored with MathML. The accessibility problems with math is that screen readers can't reliably parse fractions, exponents, or operators. Users hear confusing outputs like x equals box squared. Only proper MathML or image with the proper alt text gives the correct semantic meaning. Many word equations export to PDF as images with no meaning. Couple of accessibility options are use math type to create MathML in Word. In case you don't have access to it, create an image with good alt text explaining your math equation. And always avoid built-in equation editor because it does not create accessible equations. Math equations, because I do not have access to MathML, my recommendation would be, in case you are also not having access, create an image of that math equation, then create a meaningful alternate text so that a screen reader user can also understand it. But option 1 is to always use MathML. You might have seen documents with red color strikeouts. Yes, that's a document being tracked for changes such as deletion or addition of content, usually done when multiple people are modifying it. Now, tracking and reviewing changes are accessible, and there is a detailed guide on how to perform these functions using a screen reader. I'll put that link in the description. As long as color contrast is good and you have used the correct reviewing feature to track changes, we should be good. And I will cover how to test in our next video. For tracking changes, you have to simply go to Review, click on Track Changes, and select for everyone. Now, if I make any changes to this form, let's go back where we have text on this Word document. If I delete this and click outside, you see everything is striked out with red color. That signifies that something has changed. And if I'm viewing it, if I go to View, or let's go back to Review, let me close this alt text. It provides a mechanism for you to go from one. So under Review, you can go to Previous and Next in case you have multiple edits on this document. So let me do this thing. Let's delete this as well. And so that we can jump between these two tracking options. And in our next video, as I said, we will walk you through on how you can use a screen reader to test these changes. It does announce deleted or added, but that's confusing, and that's an alternative that a screen reader users use to read the changes that has happened and how they track changes. Finally, it's time for the built-in accessibility checker. Remember, it's not perfect, but it provides clues in case we might have missed some silly things. Let's see how many issues we have in this document. Don't trust accessibility checkers, even when they say you are good to go. Now, there are a couple of options. One is at the bottom of this document. It says accessibility. investigate. Once you click on it, it will highlight everything which is broken in this Word document. The first one that I can see is missing alternate text. If I click on this, it's highlighting this empty section. So let's delete that because that's something that I'm not tracking. And for simplicity, I'm going to turn off the tracking. I'll say accept. I will turn off the tracking changes. Now let's go back and check for accessibility issues under the accessibility checker. Next, it's saying missing table headers. Now the options that we have is use first row as a header, use first column as a header, or mark as layout table. So this is what I will do, mark it as a layout table. Now it says looks good, no issues found. But again, this is a trap. It only investigates the obvious things. It does not talk about the screen reader experience or the navigation experience that the end user has. So treat accessibility good to go with a grain of salt. You have to test thoroughly for manual checks. Because tools don't use your product, but people, they do. In our next video, we will be testing this Word document for in-depth analysis. This is the moment where most accessible documents break. One wrong export and everything collapses. Let's do it in the right way. And finally, it's time to save and export the Word document. So we have to do a couple of things. Go to File, go to the Info section. Within the Info, change the title of this document. Similar to web applications, you have to provide title even if you have the heading. Ensure that you provide a unique title, a meaningful title. So we'll go Web Accessible Word Document. And if you require, you can add your name as an author. See, by default, it is picking up my name. If you see your name is not being displayed, you can add another author to this. And secondly, if you want to convert this document into a PDF, go and save it as File, Save a Copy. Under More Options, then select the type in which you want to save. Select PDF, then select More Options, and then select Options. You need to ensure that you select document structure tags for accessibility. Unless you do this, any progress that you have done to make use of the right tags for your headings, alternate text for images, list tags that you have used, those all will be lost unless you make this as a selection document structure tags for accessibility. Do that, save it, and it should convert the tagged PDF for you. Congratulations! You didn't just save the file, you preserved every accessibility choice you made. That's how professionals finish. And that's it. You just built a fully accessible Word document from scratch. Not by guessing, not by hoping, but by design. Share this video with your friends, your team, and your manager, or anyone who still ships inaccessible documents. And if you want part 3 of Word accessibility testing, drop a comment saying Master Word Accessibility. I will see you in the next video.